Yeah, there we go. So we're recording, and just going to pass the mic around the room and have everybody introduce themselves. Go.
Hi, everybody. I'm Joe. W86JOE. I'm secretary of the club. I'm on the operating activities committee. I'm amateur extra. Love all things ham radio related. Thank you.
Hi, Paul DeCass, W87BR, amateur extra, living in the Volcano area.
I am Mark, WA7ZK, from over in Kona, just visiting. And next person.
Frank Owsley, KH6FA. I'm just down to Ocean View.
WA6GNK, Derek, just up the road from Healer here, 5 minutes away, and amateur extra. This is my wife, May, next door here. Go ahead. She has a cold, so she's making sure she you guys say.
WH6GNJ. I mean, yeah, I'm May.
Okay.
I don't think this is working, is it? Is
Oh,
it?
no, it is. Yeah.
Okay. My name's Robert, K4RAC, and been inactive in ham radio for 10, 15 years and thinking of getting back into it.
Yeah. Welcome back.
Thank you.
I'm Bill ND0B and hang out in HPP.
Hi, I'm Sharon, WH6ELB.
I'm Dennis, WH6ELY and extra class.
Hey, David, KH6CZ, and I'm chair of the Education and Outreach Committee for the BIARC Club. And you may have heard us on the radio on Thursday. I think we were talking with the kids at the Hilo Union School. So we do that on a regular basis. So. And this is one of the guys who's on here.
Hello, hi, I'm Sean, W86GXZ. Hi, everybody over there in digital reality. What about?
Mark Watanabe, WH6FSA, at large member of the board.
Hi, I'm Bob, AH6J. I've been a ham forever since 1957. Have an extra. I finally sloughed off most of my jobs and I'm just chairman of the refreshment committee.
I'm Jim, W86EMN, amateur extra, and I do a couple of things around the club and helping out with the health net at the hospital and a few other things. That's back to you.
Les, K0BAD, apparently the second person in the room that doesn't have an H in his call sign. And been a ham for a little over 60 years. Been on the Big Island here now for 9. So.
Tony Kitchen, WH6DVI. I'm the BIARC treasurer, and I'm also on the area's assistant section emergency coordinator. And I'm with VOAD, Y Island VOAD. I'm the secretary. So I'm also the Aries coordinator or liaison to VOAD. And David Miller, I don't remember if he mentioned, he's the BIARC coordinator to VOAD, Voluntary Agencies Active in Disaster. So we're all trying to work together. Actually, the hats, in my view at least, I try to keep in mind what hat I'm wearing at any given time, but you know, that changes frequently. And so the bottom line is trying to get, for me at least, trying to build relationships between organizations so that we can all work together, especially in the disaster preparedness and disaster recovery space. Did you start? Or?
Oh, I started. So
did we miss anybody? Oh, online, I guess.
Yeah, let's go online. You want to start with Lee?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
I'm Lee, WH6LC, and I've been a ham for 11, 12 years, and Amateur Extra, and I'm the newsletter, the Hamgram editor. Nice to see all you guys, especially that dude over there in Arkansas. W6LC, clear.
Lee, the check's in the mail. Just thought I'd mention that.
Where have I heard that before?
All right, Jimmy.
Whiskey Hotel 6, Gulf Echo Mike, General Love checking in. You people ain't right in the head. Sweet baby Jesus, help all of them. But man, I love and miss all you guys. And man, just look, my message through all of this is none of you ever quit. See, that's the thing right there. As long as you never give up, you never quit, we're going to win. We've always won. That's what BioArc does. It's who we are as a people. And God bless y'all. Tony, William, you boys, you rock. I love you.
Can't believe you just called me a person.
Thanks, Jimmy.
Hate those things.
Let's hear from Gary.
Gary, KH6GM up in Nanole. I'm a Gua Ghost, 20 miles north of Hilo on the Apoyoy 13 and Aries member CEC for our area. Thank you.
Right on. Well, thank you folks for joining us on Zoom there, and thank you folks for joining us in person. There's been a little bit of a change to the scheduled programming for today, and although I don't have a proper stand for it, I was gonna show you folks the ATAS setup that we have and my old Yaesu radio. But I was wondering, did you want to talk about what you had going first there, Jim?
Okay,
Or, yep. Bob.
I'll make it rather short. You want me to hold the microphone?
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. We don't want anybody to miss anything. What we're doing is talking about cold camping. What's a cold camp? The camp without fire. Why? Can you imagine we want to have a deployment or a camp without fire? Well, because the authorities say no fire. That's probably one of the biggest reasons. This POTA deployment last weekend had that restriction. They were up at the national park, and there's no fires allowed. And last month at our meeting, we avoided a disaster when the cook fire or when the camp stove caught on fire. We had to put it out here in the parking lot. So there is a fire of danger. We managed to put it out, but it was close. We have to be careful about that. And you read in the news about the danger of fire and all of the other things. So that's basically what we're trying to avoid. In fire-prone areas, it's common to have some kind of restrictions depending upon what agency controls, whether it's a park, whether it's a city, state, whatever. Let's go to the national park system. They have two levels: no fire absolutely at all, no flames, or restricted flames. And of course, regular camping. But in this last weekend, it was a no fire situation. In other words, no open flames. And that's the kind of a thing that if we get deployed for whatever reason, we might run into. So what's the solution on this? Well, a cold camp or a camp without fire. It's not too comfortable to have cold food. Except if maybe it's ice cream, kind of like that. But also, it can be somewhat dangerous depending upon the situation where you're deployed. And you got to also look out for things like poison or other contamination from germs and critters and on and on and on and on. So this is just kind of a cautionary thing about when we get deployed. We always have to kind of have it planned out a little bit ahead of time. That's the best solution for avoiding problems. Keeping includes poison, contaminations, disease, physical danger like the fire, and other hazards. I mean, your imagination can be, okay, so what do? Well, we plan ahead, and we not just plan ahead, but we write it down so that we know what the regulations are and what the dangers are. One other thing you can do is you eat ahead of time. Huh? Eat ahead of time. That way you don't have to have as much food. Okay, that seems reasonable. Keep the materials that you need for your deployment to a minimum. In other words, don't bring a whole huge whatever. And then have a safety backup plan, especially in communications. Several means of calling for help. And study and know the area you're going to. If you're going to go to the national park, know what their regulations are, know how to get in and out. If you're going to a state park or some other place, say, for example, you get deployed out to the Hamakua coast, be aware of what's around you. And add to that any ideas that you come up with, because this is not a complete list. Basically, it's like the Boy Scouts, be prepared, think ahead.
All right.
I was going to take a couple minutes of your time. One thing is, I've been dragging the library in here with me, and I got kind of tired of doing that. So from now on, I'm going to be bringing the list that Les had made up of what's in the library, and it's a copy on the table over there. And you can look through it, and if you decide you want one of the books, check it off and give me the sheet, and I'll bring it to the next meeting, because my back's getting old and tired, and I'm lazy. Okay. Next thing is, second last thing is shirts. Our silk screen guy, or my friend is a silk screen guy, Big Island silk screening. He's added to his repertoire of selections. There's some shirts over there. There's samples of what he does. And there's a brochure like this. There's 3 selections. You can have one with the BIARC on one side and the name and the call sign on the other. The other one is the name and call sign, and then the logo of BIARC, which is this small one on this side, or like this shirt here with the on the front and the back. And he's asking an order be of 2 shirts and $25. That covers his setup time, or setup for your name and your call sign. And that would get 2 shirts silk screen any of the 3 ways that you'd like. And you can total of $25 for the 2 shirts combined.
But you gotta buy your own shirt.
Yeah, you provide your own shirts. Yeah, yeah. So you can provide any shirt you want. You can look in that. I have that black bag over there. There's a shirt in there that I gave to him, had him silk screen the logo on. And if you look at it, you don't want to bring that kind of shirt to get a silk screen, because it looks terrible. So the other shirts don't look too bad, but different fabric. It looks nicer on one fabric, some fabrics than on others. And there's all 3 styles, and you can just take one of these and you put your name and everything on it. And you can either give me the money, or you can contact Chris directly. He lives up in the Aloha States. So he goes up and down the hill. So he's reasonably locally available. He comes down to Hilo now and then. So his mom lives down here. Okay, so that's enough on that one. And if you have any questions, you ask me later on. Okay. Give it to you, Troy.
And if I may, real quick. I just thought I would recognize the CERT team, or the CERT team leads and CERT people that are here. I don't know if everybody realizes Dennis and Sharon. Sharon's actually an employee, right, of Civil Defense. And they're both the team leads for the Orchid Land CERT team. And then Jim, are you?
Not anymore.
Not anymore, okay.
They got Mark.
So Mark, which team lead are you, or which?
Hilo Bayfront.
Okay, so we've got Mark from Hilo Bayfront, David from Kaloli Point. Did I miss anybody? So I'd just like to thank them for showing up. And, you know, I appreciate the CERT team program. It's sponsored under the county community corps. and civil defense. And it's still ongoing. So if anybody's interested in getting more information or maybe finding out when the next training is, I could probably put you in touch with someone like Sharon, who would be able to give you that information. My email, tonykitchen808@gmail.com. Back to you, Thomas.
Right on. Yeah. Thank you, folks. Thank you for everything you do. We did have a program scheduled for today to talk about the club radio and the antenna setup that we have. Unfortunately, the club radio is not on hand and the club battery is not properly set up for my setup here. I brought in my FT100, my Yaesu, and with it, I have the diplexer. So it takes the both the HF and the VHF. Oop, don't want to lose that there. And UHF end of things on because it has two plugs on the back, and it makes it go to one plug. And I don't have the cable going to it at the moment, and it connects to my ATAS. Luckily, I had this in my frunk because I'm obviously missing parts to attach it to my house. But there are extras in all of this. Just for the diplexer, they vary. I have an MFJ here, and it I believe they go for about $50 online. Sometimes you might be able to find a deal as far as one being sold used.
If you go back about 2 years in the Hamgram, I have an article where I reviewed diplexers and triplexers. The MFJ one has a flaw in it. I would not recommend using the MFJ diplexer. The one that we determined was better was the Comet version.
Well, now I have to get a comment. Thanks for letting me know.
Question
I
on
got
that,
it.
William. So are those about the same price?
No, of course not. MFJ is about, 2/3 of the cost of the Comet, as I recall.
The Comet's maybe 100.
Even I think.
Prices on the Comet right now are $78.
Oh, there we go.
What's the problem with the MFJ? The filter response, I believe it was on the high side, is really unsteady. The circuit is not designed very well. It has much more Chebyshev ripple than would be tolerable. And the knee is too close to the band. So like I said, the sweeps and everything are in that newsletter article. So if you go back and, because all those hamgrams are on the website. I don't remember what month it was, but I believe that I published that one in 2017.
It's always good to go back into the hamgrams and see what information you can yield from them. I mean, there's usually little bits like that that might help save you money and time.
2019, sorry.
There we go, 2019.
One more question, if I might. So would that type of a unit that we're talking about, the Comet diplexer, would that work in like say the UHF MTR 2000 setup?
Well, we're using one of those Comet diplexers right now with Kalani, and that's how we're allowed to have the 7.6 repeater and that DR2X on the same antenna.
So it'd be fine for that.
Yeah, and that's why we did the testing. I bought an MFJ and I bought a Comet and I tested, and before the club bought their equipment, we figured out what was good and what was bad. I also have tests for the Diamond and Westel, but they are not in that because that came as a part of a later project.
And when you order those, can you like specify the bandpass areas, or is it just a range? Or
no, those they just tell you the range. And Comet and MFJ are of course built around the ham bands. Westel is built around the public safety frequencies, but it actually makes no difference to our use. The Westel worked great too.
Can you talk a little bit about adjusting tuning then?
You don't.
You don't.
So those are LC circuits. So the tuning is set by the circuit lattice. The it's probably a pi network. It's a series of pi networks. So it's probably a multi-stage filter. One side's a low pass, the other side's a band pass. And if it's triplexer, it's going to have a band pass between those. And the frequency ranges are set by the component selection of the capacitors and the inductors. So I guess you could alter it if needed, but then you're going to have to, remove those components, recalculate to make sure your impedances are correct. At that point, just design your own. It's not hard. There's calculators that let you do it. I use ELSI when I do mine, and it's just a few bucks of inductors and capacitors, and you can either do it on a perf board, or these days you can get a PCB spun up for it, and they'll even drop components on if you don't want to do your own soldering, stuff like that. Costs a little bit more money, but it's a heck of a lot less than what MFJ is going to charge you for that thing.
So
let
it's a
alone
one size fits all for amateur radio UHF kind of operations.
Well, they make them in different configurations. They make them where you can have all of your HF up to say 30 megahertz, right at the top end of the 10-meter band on one port, and then 6 meters and up on another port. That would allow you to have a separate 6-meter antenna. And then you would connect the common port to your rig, and then connect the high port to the 6-meter antenna and the low port to your regular HF antenna. So that's a use case for it. But you could also use that same one and connect the coax to the antenna, to the common port, and then put your 2-meter rig on the high port and your HF rig on the low port. And on the other end, have another one of these and use the high port to split off to go to your 2-meter, say 70 centimeter, a Diamond X50 style antenna, and then have the low port feed your HF antenna. That way you've got one coax feeding both uses. So there's a lot of use cases for these. And then you can add additional devices such as a triplexer. I have a triplexer that I made for my, I forgot the model name, my Anytone tri-band radio. And that allows me to use a separate 220 antenna. This one's sort of a specific use case. Here, you want to point that at me?
Yeah, and then trade you.
Sure. In this case, I've taken the low pass, so I get 2 meters out, and the high pass, so I can get 70 centimeters out, and then they recombine, and those go to a single antenna, a dual band Diamond X50 NA. The band pass port in the center goes to the non-harmonically related band, and that allows me to run a separate Yagi for 220. Because my rig only gives me 5 watts out. I wanted some gain to help give myself a little bit of performance. And since nobody lives out in the ocean behind me, I just point that one in the general direction out towards everybody else. And that's how I do all for one radio, all 3 bands with only 2 antennas. Go ahead, Les.
On the case of the comment, what's the typical insertion loss?
So that depends on a lot of things. So on these ones that you buy, like the Comet, they're going to give you a textbook value, and it's going to be something like 0.2 dB of insertion loss through each side. Now, when you look in the Hamgram article that I wrote a number of years ago, I actually put those on my professional test equipment and measured it, and it far exceeded that performance. You could hardly tell that the thing was there. So they're just being safe with those numbers in that case. Not true with the MFJ. When it said that it was a little lossy, it was more than a little lossy. So when you start doing stuff that is, let's say we're going to put the 3 in, like the one for my my Anytone, so I can get the 1.25 meters out. Now we're operating on bands that are closer together. If I was just doing the 2 bands, 2 meters and 70 centimeters, and wanted to split them, I could put the roll off, the knee of that low pass filter right in the middle of the 220 band. And I could put the same roll on of the pass, that same knee, for the high pass filter in the 220 band. And the 220 wouldn't perform worth a darn, of course, because that's where all this filtering's happening, but there's nothing happening there. I've got all that spectrum in the middle that's not used. So I don't need as high of a Q. I don't need as tight of filtering, which means I can use less stages and I can use less expensive parts. If I want to add that 3rd band in the middle, I'm going to have to now filter tighter so that my filtering out for that lower band doesn't have its roll-off slope, its slew going all the way into the 2-meter band. So I need a tighter Q. I now need multiple filtering stages to make my response sharper. and I need a higher Q, so I need to use higher quality parts to get that higher quality factor. That's what Q stands for, quality factor. And that means that I'm going to have to use larger components. I'm going to have to use components that are maybe silver conductors and things like that. So that's really what drives that. It's a use case thing. So where if I'm trying to separate 6 meters from 10 meters, I've got a huge amount of spectrum in there to play with. But if I'm trying to separate 10 meters and 12 meters, now I've got a hard problem because I don't have a lot of spectrum in it. Can I still do it? Yeah, maybe, but now I'm going to have to give something up, and it's probably going to be insertion loss. So that's that trade-off on that.
So one more question. Just a standard UHF with 5 megahertz differential. What's a good solution? Keep it simple.
That would be to not use an LC circuit. That's where we use duplexers that use resonators. And we can either use the helical resonators that are in those flat pack, what we call mobile duplexers, or we can use a larger one, like what we call a CAN. The larger it is, the higher the Q can be to a point. So when you use a full-size CAN on a 70 centimeter duplexer, you get lower insertion loss and you get greater filtering. But you can accommodate that same spread using the helical resonators. And with those, the Q is not as good. So we're talking about getting that roll off to happen and fall right at the foot of the next frequency over at 5 megahertz away. It can do it. You can't do that at 600 kilohertz, like on 2 meters. That's way too close. Or just imagine the 100 kilohertz that is a 10 meter repeater. You can't use LCs. You can't use helical resonators. So yeah, it's a lot of that's just bound by the laws of physics. Size matters.
And those duplexers, how big are they on UHFs that you're talking about?
On UHF, that could be a flat pack duplexer. It can be as small for the 5 megahertz spread that we deal with is a little bit smaller than this radio on the table. It's a little shorter, but the other dimensions are about appropriate. And that's the helical resonator version. That's a package we call a mobile duplexer, because there's times where those would get deployed in a vehicle for multiple reasons. A rack mount duplexer could have 4 full-size cavities in it and be, say, 4 inches tall and 16 inches wide, and then have the ears to go out to the 19 inches to mount in the rack. And those are full-size resonators in there. But then high Q cavities are going to be 12 inches in diameter, and they're going to be 3/4 of a wavelength long on the inside. And that's going to make them the size of a 2 meter can. So.
All right.
How do we get on triplexers?
Well,
oh, that one.
Yeah. So Thomas, one other thing on your antenna, could you explain the, you said it was an ATAS?
An ATAS. So
What
it,
does that stand for?
that would be, just so I don't get it wrong here, just in case, the active tuning antenna system that it is a screwdriver style antenna, and it does auto tune. So when you want a certain band of the frequency to be used, whether it be HF or VHF, you would tune to that frequency and then hold down the tune button on the radio. Once you do that, give it time. You always want to let it go all the way. About maybe 2 to 5 minutes, depending on the frequency. Just
Yeah, I throw that out there because at field day or winter field day, that's what caught me, is that I pressed the button and I'm Generation X. I wanted results now.
most folks expect it to be an instant thing, that you're actually going to wait for this to go all the way up, sweep the whole spectrum that it can do, and then all the way back down. Give it another second because it's going to go back up and then tune back down to the frequency. And that can take 2 to 5 minutes. I mean, it all depends on what radio you have, how much power it's outputting to. And even I've been it took me a little while to get used to it, but I'm happy to have found this on sale at the last event that was out in Waimea. It was a what was it called? Yeah, it was the Ham Fest, and it was basically a big swap meet for all of the hams in the area there, and it was great. If you ever have the opportunity to go to one, please do. You'll see everything there. I saw laser equipment. I saw this. I found this, and I got a great deal on it. Albeit it seemed, or he said it was used, but there's no wear marks on it, which is great. Thank God. But yeah, he did get me on the MFJ there. But at least I'm glad enough that I got a duplexer at the same time. Otherwise, I would have had to have waited for it, God knows how long, to order something offline. But had I had the time to wait, I probably would have done the research and gone into the hamgrams and found out more about why I would have gone with the Comet duplexer that is actually listed here. And I was going to pass this around. It has the Wemo ATAS counterpoise kit, the instructions for the ATAS antenna, which can be found as a PDF online. So if you ever want to look at it too, it's free on the internet. Literally just type in ATAS-120 and it'll come up as a PDF. Once you click on it, it goes onto your phone and it's there until you get rid of it. But I was going to pass this around, and then incidentally, the Comet duplexer listing for the CF530, the one that I believe that Club went with there, is it'll be in the back page there. So if you want to take a look at that, at least write down model numbers and maybe get a little bit better of a grip on it, all of this.
Yeah, the club with the CF530N, it has N connectors.
There we go, the N type. There is a listing for that on here. There's the C, the A, B, M, and an N connector. So
The club did that because the club's equipment uses N connectors, and also because N connectors are far superior to the PLC.
yep, there we go. Yeah, you guys want to take a look at this?
Nobody wanted to challenge me on that. Everyone's heard my rant.
I already saw it.
Well, type N connectors, they have their place, and yeah, if I could afford them, I would be using them. Yeah. Well,
Mark has a question.
Mark.
So are you using yours as a mobile or can it be used as a?
It can be used as a mobile, and I have seen some very nice options as far as foldovers for them. And I know Comet makes one, and I know MFJ, like they make everything. They make one where once you want to turn it on, it will actually fold back up, so you can get through a drive-through or not break it off of your car. What else?
What bands does that model do?
Oh, shoot, they're all listed on that. It would be all of the HF. Oh, there we go. Oh, yeah, I'm still mic'd up. Yeah, it's all in the instruction sheet there. I really don't want to get that part wrong.
But it starts at 10.
10, I believe it does 12, 17, 20. It's all band as far as I can tell. Only thing I don't think it does is.
But there's a catch with that, which is also something I learned the first time I used one, which was at the recent Winter Field Day. It will work 10 meters, but it has a resonant stub that needs to be installed. It will not tune onto 10 meters without that resonant stub. It has other resonant stubs that have to be installed.
That would be
These are
these
not
stubs.
radials that he's holding up there. Let me get a closer look at this for the people online. These are not radials. These are resonant stubs, and they're needed for the tuning. Now you can run without radials and just use those resonant stubs, and you will get some performance. But adding additional radials is preferred.
That's why on the listing that's being passed around there, I'm not quite sure if it's out yet, but it's in production and it will be out someday. There's actually a better well, ground plane and radial stub solution. So that might be something to think of and include in the whole pricing scheme of things. When the radio was being ordered for the club, I know it was talked about and wanted that everything would be all inclusive and all in one. You wouldn't have to get 20 different solutions as far as antennas goes. I mean, God knows resonant antennas might always be best there, considering the learning curve of using one of these. But
That set of radios is a new addition.
so that's a new addition. That's yeah. There we go. Soon enough, maybe that'll be a thing. I don't know if the budget would include that, but I'm thinking at the next field day, I might let the club use my my stub and everything from this. Just that way, everything's all there, and it might be a little bit easier to use. And just like I said, the main thing is patience when using one of these. It just, you got to let it tune. And
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but when you hit tune, depending on which side of the frequency that you're going to, you may have to tune all the way back to the start at 10 meters and then tune all the way back down. So let's say that you're on 40 meters and you want to go to 80. And you hit tune, it's going to have to tune all the way to 10 and then hunt back down from 10 to get to 80.
that is what it does. And I'm still trying to get used to it with my own radio. But as far as I know, it does that part automatically. It's just
it does. But what was happening is those of us who'd never used the antenna before had to wait 5 minutes for the thing to start tuning. And then it tuned to 10 meters and stopped. And we were like, and we halted the process. And we're like, what the heck's wrong with this thing? It's a part of the process. Do we wish it could be faster? Sure. But of the compact options, this is the best option. And it just, you have to be patient when using it. It's not really a contesting antenna.
Yeah. There are Tar Heel antennas that I've seen that do beat this speed wise, but pricing wise, this was still the best option, at least for my own personal collection here. If you look at our fellow member Roy's truck setup, he made 36 contacts via the POTA that we went to up at the Volcano National Park. And
Roy's truck's a better station than a lot of our stations.
yeah, that you'll see it in the hamgram there. I got a couple pictures of the mobile. I don't even know what to call it. It's basically a spaceship in there. But
You can also see it on YouTube, by the way.
Yep. Yeah. I did make a short video, and then I'm making a slightly longer one. It's on my own personal YouTube channel. I'm the geekiest guy. Literally just type in the geekiest guy on YouTube, and you'll at least get to that. And then you'll also find the link to that's
on the Facebook page, on the BIARC Facebook page.
Yep. So everything will be on there and at least linked all together. So, if you want to look back at any of this, even today's meeting or program, this will be, at least the audio will go up first, and then.
Well, the audio, that's separate. I do that so that Joe can do minutes, but yeah, I upload these whenever I get a chance in the following weeks after the program happens, but hopefully before the next program happens.
Well, I mean, he's a busy guy, so if you don't see it immediately or within those couple of weeks there,
That means
just
I forgot.
give it some time. Give him some time.
No, that means I forgot.
Okay, I'll remind you. Les.
So this antenna starts its scan from the top, from the highest frequency, it goes down.
I want to say that is the way it goes, because it does
Would that be
cycle all the way up.
same for the Tar Heels and things like that? Will it take longer if you're trying to tune to 80 meters than it would have if you were on a UHF frequency?
Unfortunately, the presenter who was supposed to be talking about this could not be here today at
And
the
he's-
last minute.
he's
But
had both of them.
He's the Tar Heel guru, and that would be Roy. So that's
Yeah.
a Roy question.
Yeah, so please direct these questions to Roy, and I will try and find out if I can. That way I could help inform all of you folks. That way on the next field day or POTA or whatever we end up doing together, at least we'll all be able to think about it and know what to do, even if one of us isn't there. Let me see, I didn't really have anything else program-wise, but
Oh, one other thing on that antenna that shows on the directions of inserting your center antenna.
oh, yep, that's,
So that
I left the
people
center off. I just
Don't leave that part in the box,
Yeah.
otherwise it won't work.
always make sure you have the center mass inserted in the top there. It is one of those things where you're going to need a couple of Allen head keys for it, and the little protector on the top there comes off, and there is a little hole in there. It might not be visible, but it's there. And there is a,
You can see it on screen.
oh, awesome. There, yeah. There are Allen heads on both sides, and you just need to loosen them up just a little bit. And you can insert, I don't know if mine's actually open or not. Of course, I wasn't planning on this, but hey, there we go. Of course, you want to insert it through the rubber cap first. Otherwise, you will not be able to tune this at all. And yeah, it has happened.
The rubber cap is required for the tuning work?
It's required for it to not get any corrosion on the inside of it because we're in Hawaii, and I swear the second you put this out, it will rain. So far so good. They are relatively weather resistant, and they do a good job of sealing things. There is some maintenance that can be done on them. There are a couple of ball bearings and whatnot on the inside where if you ever need to, it is user serviceable. Don't let it psych you out. These are things that are meant to be taken apart and put back together. Just when you do it, make sure you have your glasses on, have a magnet nearby, and always make sure that you have a clean area to do it. Maybe someday, if I ever have to, I'll go over the cleaning and the lubrication of one of these for you folks. And try and always keep an eye out for the grub screws and the cap and everything. I know that there are user replaceable parts available online, but it might take a while to get a hold of some of that stuff. I also found some 3D printable files. So if you ever do lose one of these top caps, you can print one out of a TPU material. To do that, you'd have to have a whole enclosure, and it's a whole nother rabbit hole. Maybe we'll go down that another day. But
Now, I will say that there will be a 3D printer available in the electronics lab during the quarterly workshops. So if you don't have one, and if it's something that can print in just a couple of hours, that is an option for you. It's not the latest and greatest, but it will print nylon, TPA, PLA.
I did print this out of PLA Plus, this cage mount for this radio, and it sure beat the aluminum options. I can print 40 of these for the cost of this one that I printed. It did take a little bit of time, and I did have to modify the file just a little bit to make sure it fit this radio, but it's just one of those things. You set it and forget it. You make sure everything's good, your temperatures are good, you have a dehumidifier in the room or in the box that's with the 3D printer, and you can just kind of let it do its thing. The main thing is just to make sure that you remove any kind of humidity from the immediate area. You don't want the filament that you just bought to soak into it, and it's just a whole nother ordeal.
What about your radio there?
This radio was actually one that I purchased from the fellow that didn't make it to the meeting today that was going to go over all of this. I bought the radio from Roy, and it is an original Yaesu FT100. It's not the Yaesu FT100D, which is the one that most folks know about. It does have a lot of the internals that have been modified to make it so digital things can happen with it. I do have a digi-rig to go along with it. So when I eventually get into digital, I will be calling Sean and probably Frank. I'm going to call and reach out to whoever I can, because you can actually do digital communications with this, with the tiny digi-rig. I do have a digi-rig with me. And it is a tiny little box. Now, this is one of those things where you might not think you need it, but it does do multi-purpose. It is the serial connection and audio connection on one end, and then it has a USB-C on the other. Now, you can plug this into your computer and use it to actually program your radios. So if you have Chirp or one of the stock software for your radios, you can actually just use one of these and be able to use it for digital communications at the same time. I've tried, and I've actually got some communication with my my phone, because if you don't have to lug around a laptop and you can still get by using it for a serial communication and the audio, why not? There's been a few days when I didn't have my headphones with me, but I had a plug-in pair of headphones. I just plugged it into that and plugged it into my computer, and it worked as a sound card. And yeah, it was good enough for my needs. I know the original digi-rigs were a lot bigger. They were about the size of this MFJ duplexer. And well, now you can see it's like the size of my thumb. Pretty handy stuff. I know they're a little bit pricey, but just think of it as you just have the one-time cost on that. if you have any cables that correspond to it, you can always custom make those yourself or order the cable that's specific for your radio. They're almost everywhere. I mean, you can get them on Amazon, or you can even just find the diagrams for them, usually on the DigiRig's website there. And there's a huge forum. So if you have any questions about that, you can always dig into it there.
About what, $80?
No, actually, they started out around 80, but that was for the original big first edition.
HRI 200.
I want to say that was the number. And then this is the DigiRig Mobile, and these are about 59. There's actually pricing for this and a couple other things that I thought I'd bring up with you folks in the Hamgram from this month. So yep, thanks Lee for making that a thing and publishing me there. But yeah, if you want to look at the Hamgram for this month, it goes over this, the pricing, and then like I said, I try and find things from Amazon and other spots where anybody can get them. Yeah.
Want to take a break? We got food.
Well, actually, I got a little bit to say about this antenna that I was going to do for Roy. So if
Oh,
you
there we
wanna-
go. Yeah,
and
please
then,
do.
If anyone has questions.
All righty.
Jerry said thank you for moving the camera around. It helps.
Yeah, well, and this is working good enough. I think I'm going to get the stabilizing gimbal, so it's not so shaky in the future. But to be able to do this cost me $8 to use my cell phone like this, so all worth it. All right, so this is identical to the antenna that the club elected to purchase when we purchased our newest HF radio. Why did we purchase this antenna, and what is this antenna good at? Is something I've heard a few times now. I may have even said that during winter field day when I was struggling with it because I didn't understand the operation required significant patience. So why would you get this antenna? Well, you'd want to get this antenna for something it's good at. What is it good at? Number one, it's really good at packing up small, and we can put it in a nice little case that goes with the radio and goes anywhere. The other thing it's good at is that it covers all the bands, including our 70 centimeter and 2 meter band. So you can use one antenna in one setup at one operating activity or during one emergency, one location or whatever, and have everything you need. All antennas are a sacrifice. You have to trade something off. If you're going from anything other than just a straight dipole, something is going to have to give. So we got compact size. That means that we've had to give up bandwidth, number one. But this design brings it back because it self-tunes. This isn't good if you want to use it at your house and band hop rapidly. It's not the right tool for that job. But if you want to be able to operate on any frequency, no matter where you are, it's the right tool for that. So when people ask about this antenna, should I use this antenna at my house? Unless you're in a condo, my answer is probably going to be no. There's better options available. Because what's the other thing that this antenna gives up with its compact size? When you make an antenna small, invariably you lose efficiency. I've had antennas, I have repeated the story many times. I'll just say that KE0OET once gave a little drunken request and had me tune up his lawn furniture on 160. And we did it. We loaded up his umbrella and table and chairs and made a contact on 160 with it. It matched 50 ohms, but it was probably less than 1% efficient. But I still made a contact with it. What's one of the most inefficient antennas that any of you can think of?
A nail.
Okay, no, but I mean an actual antenna that you could buy from MFJ or somebody. The one I would offer is a mag loop. Horribly inefficient, terribly inefficient. And man, do they make contacts, right? How do they do that? Well, just because the efficiency of the antenna is not very good doesn't mean it's not making good use of what it is radiating or collecting. So an inefficient antenna isn't necessarily a bad thing. You just have to acknowledge its limitations. This is an inefficient antenna. If you operate this thing on 40 meters, It is a fraction of a quarter wave, a fraction, mere fraction. So we're able to operate at that because we've got reactive elements, we've got the conductors and stuff. We can actually bring it into resonance, but it is inefficient. So you're not quite going to have the reach that you would have with an equivalent beam or even a dipole sitting next to it. But take that beam for 40 meters and throw it in a rifle case so you can then take it from event to event. So that's the trade-off. So that's why the club bought this antenna. We needed something that could go with the rig to be used when there is no other antenna available. Why did we use it at field day? Well, because you need to practice with your tools. And obviously we needed to practice with this because we forgot to put in these tuning stubs. And that meant that we couldn't tune onto the higher bands. And I tend to work from the higher bands and go down. But because of the way this tunes, I've learned when operating it, I should go from the lower bands and go up. Because that way I'm already in the lower band and it's going to go all the way up to 10 meters and then tune back down to the lower band if I go that way. But if I just go to the next higher band, then it goes to the next higher band and stops because it already found its resonance, its tune. So we needed practice with it. So we know this is a good setup. We have several operators who have one of these who've made amazing contacts, even including the one that was there at Winter Field Day. Contacts were made into Belgium before the start of the event. So are there alternatives to this that you could use if you had a very tight space? Yes. If you've got an exceptionally tight space, like you can only put something out on the balcony and you have to take it down, this might be the option for you. So every tool has its job. Antennas are just tools, and each antenna has its application. That's why there can be no argument about what is the best antenna. It's what's a reasonable antenna for your application. Are there alternatives to this that the club could have used? Sure, but that just goes to the same argument as to why do we use WinLink as opposed to the other digital modes or something like that, you know, the FL Digi modes or something. It's like Ford or Chevy, you know, there's always going to be an argument. But this matches really well with the Yaesu radios because they can control it directly out of their tuner port. Another thing we learned is that you have to tell it that it's not on a tuner anymore. It's now operating the antenna. Otherwise, it will not tell the antenna to move. So those are some of the things at least I learned the first time I got to deploy one of these. So any questions about the physics of the antenna or the electrical design or anything? Does anyone have any questions about how it works or anything like that before we move on?
Oh, anybody online?
I have another question, not on that subject, for William.
William, you have a question?
Okay, what's that?
Okay, sir. Here in Arkansas, my compass in my truck and our compasses are swinging a little wildly. And I mean, even I've got a couple, I've got 2 colonels around me. I've got active National Guard around me, but we're seeing compass swings, and that brought in pole shifting. But I was asked, because I told the boys, I was like, look, if you really want to ask a question. So the real question that came in with the filament releases from the sun, like we know just yesterday that like an X-18 blew off the top limb and it's going to hit Mercury, Jupiter, and Uranus. But at what X factor do we have to really worry about, like our electronics, our cars, our radios? And that's from a Green Beret, sir.
Yeah, so it's not as much about the amplitude of the storm because that particular ejection was not Earth facing. So when we see one that has a perfect halo in the monitors, we know that that's Earth facing because it's spreading out equally in all directions on the line of sight between us and the sun. So there, that has...
No, I mean Earth facing, what X factor will really mess us up. That's it. We knew that much. They're
okay.
wanting to know what kind of punch, how much, how fast of a baseball can we take and get hit in the head with it, and it causes trouble, sir.
Well, it's not an on or off. It's not a yes or no question. Just like being in bright light, the light starts to get bright and you got to squint your eyes. Is that when the danger starts? Or, do you have to look straight at the sun first before you consider the danger to start? So when we deal with electromagnetic storms coming from our sun, we get lesser amounts of damage even at low storms. We start to see interference in communication systems long before we're at risk of having a Carrington style event. Do we have to hit a Carrington style event to say that that was sufficient damage? Because we received earth damage from the second ejection back, I believe it was, maybe it's a third back now. But
yes, sir,
it didn't affect anybody that we're talking about. So I wouldn't look as much as the actual number. That's like looking at the wind speed in a hurricane. It's consider what damage that you're trying to protect yourself against and how much of it you're going to get.
Give me something to take back to the Green Berets, man.
Oh, that's right. Anybody have any crayons? Tell them that an X5 and up, they should start worrying about disconnecting long wires and stuff like that.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right.
I love you with all my heart. I miss you.
We miss you too, Jimmy.
All righty. Well, with that, you guys want to take a short break? There are refreshments.
Do we have anything after the break?
Actually, I don't have anything planned. Is there anything anybody would like to bring up?
If you want to look at the documentation, Joe will have it for that ATAS.
There we go.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop the recording, but I'm going to leave the Zoom session on like I always do. And I'll leave the microphone and that camera on. And if you guys want to socialize with people online, that's how you can do it. Just stand in front of the TV and talk to them. Okay.
I look forward to having a fleshed out presentation for you at the next one, if need be. If not, it might be the one after that. But this was just put together because I had this in the front. So
These brownies and
happy to have it with me.
That worked pretty good. So I'll go ahead and buy a stabilizing gimbal.
Yeah.
Well, I'm exceptional.
So what are you using your iPhone now? Using it as a camera for Zoom?
Yeah. Interface, right? Yeah. So yeah, you can use that. Any wireless camera connected to the laptop.
No, only in this case, if you're using the Elgato, it's only the Elgato. If you want to use any wireless camera, you have, this whole setup costs me $8, not including the phone. If you want to use any wireless camera, it's going to be several thousands.
The Elgato is you're using it as an iPhone?
Yes. Yep. And then if I replace that camera with an Elgato camera, then instead of having to use the terrible interface through Zoom, switch cameras and stuff, I can actually do it right here on my laptop. But I can also then just bring another tablet that's running the software and just push a button on the screen and it'll switch cameras. I can do Zoom settings, PTZ presets, stuff like that.
I have my Razer Kyoto. I'm gonna bring that in because it has big lenses. There's a lot of side cameras. I think we'll deal with that one these days. Try and get your early and see you guys kiss.
Just wanted to let you know we won't be here for 3 months. We're heading to the mainland next month.
So you said that these are stuff, they're not counterparts.
Well, we're going to Canada. And then.
Something like the hospital?
And then we're gonna, possibly go to
So a
California.
duplex service that
and,
people use
friend of ours.
1 in 10 of the home.
To drive with us all the way across. All the way down to Florida.
Are you in the APRS? See it, because they have the VHF, your radio is one of the